All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the chat. We're looking forward to talking about some virtual discussions and how we can incorporate virtual teams into our office. We'll get started here in about 1 or 2 minutes. Do want to bring up that you are welcome to put any questions over in the chat. Um, and I'll give you my email at the end if you have any questions on how to incorporate virtual team members into your practice. Um, if you don't mind, if you're listening, would you jump over into the chat for a sec? I'm just kind of curious if you could answer a question for me, and that is, do you already have virtual team members in your office? And if you do, how many of you have? How many team members do you have virtually in your office? And if you do not have any virtual team members in your office, let me know that too. We're looking into it or thinking about it. Just want to make sure that I'm seeing the chat correctly. So for those of you who are in um, who are in there, if you could just mention that, and we'll get started here in just a second. All right, we got one person who put their answer. Mick does not have any virtual team members so far. And no, none yet. Okay, well, good. That means you're kind of interested in the concept and looking into it for your practice, which is exciting. We'll wait here for just one more minute. If you're just joining us, if you don't mind, could you let us know in the chat if you already do have any team members, and if so, how many? And if you don't, that you don't have any. Not yet. All right. All right. Well, that's helpful actually for me as I am kind of working through this and talking with you about how we've brought some into our office and how we've incorporated them in. My name is Dave Kading. I practice in Seattle, Washington. I have three clinics that I oversee, and am a practicing optometrist. I see patients. I saw patients yesterday, no patients today, and I have several podcasts as well. And I have just finished a book called The Invisible Team, which we're launching in the next couple of weeks, which is about my experience in the virtual space and how we've gone through a lot of the issues that people go through in incorporating virtual teams into their office, and some things that maybe you could do that could save you some time and some effort and some strategies. I've been working with virtual team members, either with my office or my consulting company, for just over 20 years, and it's been really, really awesome. What I kind of want to talk about is the invisible team concept of how do we incorporate people virtually into our office. How do we boost profits and reduce burnout for our office, and some implementation strategies that we could have. And I do want to thank Team for the platform for us to be able to chat and talk today. My relationship with Team is over the last 3 years. We had used an agency before Team for our virtual people, brought it in a whole team of people for our practice, and it completely fell apart. The agency that we were working with, um, if it could have gone wrong, it went wrong. And I learned a lot about what a good agency looks like, and some of the things that really set people up for success. The organization that I worked with before was less expensive than Team, but in the end, it cost us way more, and we had more turnover, and the employees weren't feeling taken care of. I just had a meeting with I think there was 9 of us on my virtual team. I've got 9 virtual people, And one of them had worked with the old agency and come over. And I was just talking with him, and he said, things are so much more streamlined for him as an employee of my office working with team. And I can certainly say that they've saved us a lot of time and effort um, on the administrative portion, and so I'm really grateful for the platform. So, what is the reality of the practices that we have today? 50% or more of us are experiencing burnout in some way. There was a survey that was done by, I think it was last year, looking at burnout in optometrists. And I think that there's a lot of move, particularly in private offices, to move over to private equity because they think they're going to get rid of a lot of the administrative burden that is going along with it. And I think that the burnout is a big reason why. Maybe of no surprise to you, 60% of an optometrist day and about 60% of our team's day is spent or more doing administrative tasks that are focused on just looking at your computer and focusing on a lot of things there, where it's not looking at a patient or not spending time directly with the patient. And when we look at one of the major things that our practices are missing out on, it's phone calls, and the real burden that that have is can be thousands of dollars of revenue that are missed. I'll speak a little bit more about that. One of the things I think that many of us are not really recognizing is that our team is dealing with burnout, and it's not just exhaustion and that somebody needs a vacation. It's an issue that really deals with our profitability. It's this emotional tie. I don't know if you're aware of this great exit that happened in 2020, 2021. But we saw that a lot of our best employees were leaving the workforce and were going somewhere else. And I think what ended up happening is that when we did lose somebody, it put the workload on another person, and those people may have been just trying to save the office, and they loved the office and they wanted to put in the effort, and they went above their zone of genius of where they're really good. And they just worked and worked and worked. And now many of us have seen that some of our best employees have left our practices because they just couldn't deal with it anymore. They loved the job, they loved the practice, but they were leaving. I don't know about you, but I certainly have had a harder time hiring in office employees over the last 4 years compared to the prior 15 years of practice. And this is a real profit killer for us for several reasons. One of the biggest ones is because of the cost of an employee who leaves us. A turnover cost can cost us $15,000 because we're losing the revenue that that employee would have helped us get. We're putting the additional burden on another employee, which we may mean lose them. And then it takes us a while to get back up to speed to where we were. And that's the reason why we're feeling like we're working harder, but making less revenue. We may have less of a team and they're working harder, and it can cost you not just on your on the expense side of things, but on your revenue side of things, is you may not be pulling in the revenue. Also, because your patients aren't getting the care and experience that they used to get because of that additional burden that's happening in office. And there's a lot of statistics about what it costs to replace an employee. And if you've got an employee that's been there for 3 or 4 years, the knowledge base that they have when you lose them, getting somebody else up to speed so that they can be able to answer those questions and take care can be 15 to 30,000, $50,000 in some cases to replace that person, according to some surveys. So we diminish the practice reputation. We diminish, the collections that we're having, and there are so many errors that really can be coming up. So in the process of looking at writing this book that I wrote on how to work with virtual teams members, I looked at our own practice and I looked at what are the things that are keeping us from being successful. And I organized them into 5 different areas, and I call them the 5 pressure points. One is the revenue squeeze, and this is the rising costs that are happening, but yet we have flat reimbursements. We're not getting paid more by insurance companies. And so it's shrinking our margins while our patient expectations are that they're going to get a better deal, and the expectations are that we're going to serve them better. But yet we're making less and everything else is costing more. The talent drain is certainly one I think many of us are dealing with, is that we're having a hard time finding people and then retaining good qualified people. And there's this competitive marketplace, and it drives up the cost of an employee. Like I didn't think I was going to ever pay employees as much as we're having to pay them right now, and the revenue squeeze of us not making as much money is certainly a barrier there as well. And then when we have this employee who ends up leaving and we're trying to hire another one, it puts more burden on another person in the office. And then the administrative avalanche, non-clinical tasks consuming an increasing amount of time, pulling our focus away from patient care and growth initiatives. This is the compliance things that are out there, which brings us to the payer wall, and that's the complex insurance requirements, the verification process, the slow cash flow because of insurance, and certainly an increased administrative burden to do that. And then the regulatory maze, it seems like there are new regulations and laws that are coming out about how we practice compared to, when I first started. That's the compliance requirements that demands constant attention and focus and expertise. And it just makes our operations so much more complicated. And those are the things that really, I think, boil down to what's putting so much pressure on our practice. For me, it finally hit ahead when I looked at the statistics in my practice, and I was missing 47% of the phone calls that were coming into the office. And that was despite the fact that every time I went into the front, my team was on the phone. And every time I went to the back, if the technicians weren't with a patient, they were on the phone, either calling a patient or answering the phone. We were on the phone all the time. I mean, we looked at the reports, and my team was on the phone for hours and hours every single day. But yet, a patient would walk in the door, somebody was on the phone just a minute, and then it would. And I said, "This has got to stop. We have got to find a new solution that can solve this type of problem." So what we did is we shift over to virtual at that time. And the smartest thing that you can do, let me give you the biggest advice, is if you're going to go to a virtual team, hire two people. The smartest thing that you can do is to hire two rather than one. What we did is we hired two people, we trained both of them, and they both did great. They both ended up staying with us for a long period of time. And then we started to expand our virtual team beyond just phone calling. And then we already had somebody who knew phone calling so that they could fill in for the other person, but we could expand through an investment. So we initially sought out two really high qualified individuals. And what we do now is we reach out to team and we say, hey, here's our culture, here's the important things that are to us. They get a hold of us and they talk to us about our practice, how we like to do things. And then they go specifically recruit people for my practice. It's not just that they have people waiting, on a bench to be like, just to jump in and fill the seat. They're looking for people for your practice that is different than mine. And then they set up a group of people for an interview. And then I went through the interview process and this is what I do now. I go through an interview process with, uh, you know, 2 to 4 to 5 candidates for each role, and I select whether I think they're going to be a good fit, or I put them back into the queue and I say, yep, no, we've got to look for some more. And then a couple of days later, they bring me more candidates. What we saw from those first two people was an immediate impact on coverage. I would walk out to the front and my team would actually be talking to each other. They would actually be asking each other about things that were happening in the office. Where before it was like, they rarely even talked to each other because they were on the phone, right? I wasn't missing phone calls. We had patient satisfaction that started to soar because when they walked in the door, there wasn't somebody that was distracted and on the phone, or hearing, hey, I'll call you back, and then that somebody's waiting to call somebody. That was our shift. And as soon as I saw that happen with those first two virtual people, I was sold. And I said, we have to find ways to support our in-office team. Many people are joining the virtual world and hiring somebody in an effort to get a cheap employee. And while that may be helpful, I think the real reason that you should be doing this is to take your in office satisfaction with your patients and raise it to another level. And by having virtual people, you can do that. Now, you can hire somebody into your office to answer the phone, and what is gonna end up happening is if the phone is ringing in the office, then different people are going to be picking it up, and you're gonna find yourself just right back in that loop. Whereas we had 2 people who are ready to answer the phone, that's what they did throughout the day, is they were the first ones to answer the phone. Now, if it rang through, then it came into the office and somebody did that. Now, we have 3 or 4 virtual people who can pick up the phone. Now, not all of them are on the phone at the same time. Some of them are doing billing, some of them are ordering contact lenses, some of them are, doing other types of roles, with checking patient insurance and, verifying their insurance before the appointment. But that is the real crux, is to satisfy and make your in-office experience better, and that's where virtual team people shine, is if you do it for that purpose. A virtual team is a group of people across the world who are incredible at what they do. These individuals are not just low paying individuals in a third world country. By no means. I have some of the smartest and most brilliant people on my team. And what team particularly has done is they've gone out and looked for people who maybe have a little of a higher education, individuals who have shown themselves to be effective in virtual types of jobs, or who have been professionals and are looking to get into working into a virtual setting. So the type and the caliber of the people that we're finding in our working with team particularly are top notch. I mean, these people in their country have sometimes a lot higher education than our in-office people. So I think there tends to be this notion that these are unskilled workers, where in reality is when we're partnering with them and asking them, hey, how can we do this better? They're finding solutions and ways that we can do things even better in our office. I think that's a real key that many of us bypass in this concept of going to virtual. So why does this work financially for our office? Number one is it reduces turnover expense, because your in-office team is more satisfied with their job. They find that they can interact with patients, which is a lot of times why they went into healthcare. That is a huge, huge financial burden that you may not see because it doesn't have a line item in your QuickBooks, but it is a huge one. Your staff expense is high and it's affecting your revenue, which is lower because you're not generating the revenue that you could. So the biggest financial benefit is that it reduces turnover expense and brings satisfaction for patients and your in-office team even higher. The other one is that there's no added infrastructure costs that you need to bring into your office. You're not having to find another desk for another person to sit, right? If I wanted a phone center, which I did attempt at one time for my office, I had to outfit a room in the office to have people answer the phone. We had to add this room and take it away from patient care. And it was a burden. It was a challenge to do. With virtual people, we can grow as large as we want in that virtual infrastructure, support our in-office team right where they are, and we can have a staff that is twice as big as we had before. Meanwhile, the in-office team is is able to expand the offerings that we're doing, but we don't have to grow the in-office team nearly as big, and we can continue to grow that virtual team to be handling the roles that just need to take place over a computer. And that brings about the one that most people think about is the number one, is that the lower cost per hour than that we're paying in the United States. And it certainly is a big benefit. Um, but even if these individuals were at a higher cost, I still think that the value is certainly there. So this is really task shifting, not job cutting. And what it's doing is it's freeing the in-office to focus on the high value, patient facing activities. It brings about this level of in-office excellence, visual and virtual efficiency to the office. And then we can bring about elevated clinical quality within our office. And one of the big ways that we do that is with our medical scribing. So our technicians are getting patients prepared for the doctor to see, and the doctor works with one technician and one virtual scribe, and the doctor takes that virtual scribe on an iPad from room to room with them, and the virtual scribe is able to get letters sent back to referring doctors or to primary care doctors or diabetic reports, and those are great ways to grow your practice, right? Meanwhile, the in-office technician is able to come and get the patient from the exam room, you know, transmit the information into the optician, and there tends to be this better face-to-face interaction that is happening in the office. A great way to bring about a better quality of care. So, what are some of the key roles for you in your office? It may be very different than for me in my office, but the one that I hear most often when I'm consulting with offices who are looking at bringing in something, and I help offices who are looking to bring about efficiency or improvement in their practice. And one of the big ones is the phone support and getting that away from the in-office team. Maybe for you, it's billing, right? How do we transmit? We've got a gentleman who's been with us for 4 years in the Philippines. He comes on at 2 o'clock our time, which is 6 in the morning his time, and then he works throughout his day, and he's able to take things from our day and get them transmitted over to insurance that evening, and then by the next day he's away sleeping and we're starting our next day. It works out perfectly, and he's worked very efficiently with the in-office team and the virtual team to make that work really well. He's able to call patients in the afternoon to answer questions if need be, and so forth. I also have two marketing individuals who have been working with us for the last couple of years, and they're doing a great job making sure we're staying relevant in our marketing. What's important to me as the owner of the clinic, and how do I transmit that to my patients, and can do graphic design and social media work. Ordering of contact lenses, we can put an order through. I was just on with my scribe yesterday when I was seeing patients, and I was saying, "Hey, here's the lenses that I wanted to get ordered up," and I had forgot that she had got trained in that very task, and so she's like, "Oh, I'll put that order through so that the trials are coming into the office, so that the patient, can pick up the trials and try them out." We didn't even have to do that with our in-office staff. She just sent that right off. Insurance verification, we verify insurance for all of our patients before they come in the door, and so we can share with them what their copays are going to be, and also if they have got a deductible. And then operations and administrative support, obviously, in addition to the phone support, which again I think is one of the main ones and most common that people are thinking of. So what does this bring about? A return on investment is certainly there. 90% operational efficiency. We were able to move over a substantial part of the tasks that were being done in the office over to our virtual team within our first 2 years. And we just kept looking as like, what else can we move on, right? Our revenue continued to grow, and we found that we were not necessarily needing to hire more in-office people. Now, we're always hiring. We're always looking for good team members to come in, and maybe sometimes we're a little bit we need another one, or maybe sometimes we have a little bit extra. Um, but that hasn't been a major burden if we've been way low. We've been able to lean on our virtual team to help keep us steady, where if we didn't have our virtual team right now, if for some reason something happened, there's no way we could operate without that phone support that we have and the billing support that we have. So a big blessing in that arena. The talent drain decreased substantially, because as we would lose an individual who would be doing a lot of virtual tasks, we were able to transition that over to somebody else. Meanwhile, other individuals in the office, we were able to elevate them to more patient-focused tasks, and they enjoyed their job, so they weren't leaving. So that wasn't costing us as much, and so that 75,000 wasn't necessarily an additional revenue, but it was a savings that we saw. And then, our providers were able to see literally more patients over the course of the year than they were able to before because now they had a scribe and they were reducing the amount of time that they were just staring at the computer, charting away after every single patient. And at the end of the day, right? How many of us go home with, you know, a whole day of patients that we were needing to chart here or there and need to catch up on this one here and there. So our providers were able to see more patients as well. So this was another movement for me over into this direction. This patient's name is different than what is listed here, but Mrs. Shen, she had been seeing me for the last 8 years. She had chronic dry eye. She regularly comes in, spends lots of money on procedures and her office visits with us. And she said that she was trying to reschedule an appointment. She called 3 times over 2 days and didn't have an answer. Now we charge a no-show cost, and she was really concerned that she was going to have to pay a no show cost to us. She told me that she was just feeling ignored. She was looking for a new provider. She said, "I love seeing you as my doctor. I want to come see you as my doctor, but I feel like nobody's caring about me because nobody's answering the phone or calling me back." So I had to apologize to her, and I said, this is certainly not the case. She was blaming our team and saying that they didn't care. Meanwhile, I know they're on the phone all day. And so this is one of those solutions that we had. And, I saw Mrs. Shen recently and she said, "I'm really glad that your front desk team is so friendly now." And it's the same people. It wasn't that they weren't friendly before, but now they're able to care for the people that are face to face. And I have this quote is no matter how excellent your clinical care is, if a patient can't reach you when they need you, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else and choose another provider. So this hybrid model of the in-office team for that high touch point, interacting where patients need to be looked into the eye and they need to have somebody that's listening to them and caring for them, looking to our virtual team for that high frequency activities, the activities that have, those very frequent touch points. And then when we can combine those two, it really brings a value of this hybrid model that team particularly is really, really good at building because they're in optometry and they know our business. They can really be focusing on how to build your team in a hybrid type of approach. So, some things that we need to object, common objections and how we address them. Will my team feel replaced? And how can I trust these remote workers, right? So, will my team feel replaced? And this one certainly is one that I hear all the time from practices, and I say no. Like the very reason that we're bringing in virtual people is to not replace you. We're bringing in virtual people to be able to give you the job back that you once had or that you want so that you can interact face to face with people. Now, I didn't replace any of my team. Maybe some other people would, but that's not the objective of hiring these people. And most of the people that I talk to, when they're looking at bringing in virtual, they're not looking to fire their in office people. What they're trying to do is expand and build because they're dealing with the five pressure points in some way, or at least one or two or three of them, right? The talent drain being the biggest one is it's just hard to find people to come and work in the office. So what can we do that is being done in the office that we can move over? Share the burnout data, share that, hey, I know you're struggling. And then how can we celebrate wins when we bring somebody else in and have them be your partner in the work that you're doing? And then how do you trust the remote staff? Well, this is one where your agency is really, really critical. Um, so so with team, we work with our account manager, and they're somebody we deal with all the time. We're talking with them, we're partnering with them on overseeing the team that we have. There is a dashboard where our employees are entering data about what they accomplished, and then we can check that, right? And if anybody starts dropping off or isn't showing up to work, we're going to know about it, and team is going to help us know about it. And that's something that is really critical with an agency. The last agency that we had all sorts of problems that came up where people weren't showing up to work, but yet they were logging in. we didn't know that they weren't there, and all sorts of issues were resolved. But that has not been an issue with the quality of the individuals that team has found for us. And if it had, then we would see those in our metrics, and we would see that it might go by for a day, but certainly we wouldn't see that happening over the course of a week where somebody would be misbehaving. We would catch up on that. Also, we can work with team to make sure that we're HIPAA compliant. And that is a big one, is when you're dealing with patient data and anybody that's logging in, you want to ask yourself is, how is this virtual person logging into my data, right? Not just that I'm giving them an electronic health record, sign in, but how are we keeping that data protected? And the infrastructure that is in place with team keeps that, so that we're not having to worry about that like we were with some of the other agencies that we looked at. So, the launch of this is something that is not going to happen overnight. You're going to want to lay out a progress of how this is going to be. So, if you made the decision today, I want to hire somebody, you reached out to team tomorrow. Over the course of about a week, they would get to know you and your office and what the role is that you're trying to fill. Some agencies will give you the candidate the next day. That is not what you want. You don't want a candidate that is right there. You want an agency that is going to go look for somebody specifically based off of what you just told them. No more than you're just going to go out on the street and say, hey, why don't you come in and interview for this job, right? You're going to look for candidates that are good applicants. You don't want just that next in line person to come down. So they're going to then hire that person, or excuse me, they're going to then get several people lined up for you to interview. That's going to be probably in the week and a half to 2 weeks after you say yes. They're going to then hire that person, and that person is going to go through several days of onboarding with team and with some of your SOPs and understanding what you have in your job. And then somewhere around that third week or so after you say we're in, you're going to have that person show up to work. In that period of time that you're building that, you want to lay out what are the standard operating procedures of somebody who's going to be answering the phone or who is going to be doing the scribing. You want that period of time to start building and preparing for that person so that when they show up at the first day, you're ready for them. And this is also the real critical component of why it's so valuable to hire two people. A team isn't going to tell you that, and an agency isn't going to tell you that. They're just happy for you to hire one person. But may I tell you, the smartest thing that you will do is to hire two people. You're going to bring those people in, and then you're going to be training them. Those people can then be listening to each other's phone calls as they're starting to work. And they're like, hey, I picked up that you did this. I picked up that you did this. You're going to listen to some of those phone calls. You're going to be listening on with those phone calls while they're happening. And you're going to have somebody that is in the office who is not answering the phone, who is teaching these people how to answer the phone. So that person is going to be finished training with them, and now you have two people who are able to solve that problem. And now that one person or two people in the office is now free to do some other things in the office which you've been building up tasks for them to do, let alone just greeting patients and saying hello to them. Such a key component. The 31 to 60 days is where you're going to get frustrated and where your in-office team is going to get frustrated, because you're going to say, we could do this better ourselves. The reason why you're going to say that is because that person is not in the office with you to see how you're training. So your training is most oftentimes the reason why the frustration is happening. We have a rule that anytime we have an issue with our virtual, we're going to always look in the mirror first and say, where did our training fail this person? Ah, shoot, you know, it's better to realize that these people don't know rather than to think that they're being malicious in doing something wrong. the vast majority of the time is you didn't tell them or they didn't have enough reps of how to do it correctly. And usually, if they didn't have enough reps to do it correctly, it's because you were forcing and rushing the training on them. So if you can get over within your own office that 30 to 60-day time period, then you're going to soar. In that 61 to 90 days, you're going to really start to see the optimization. You're going to feel the pressure reduction, but then there's going to be some problems that happen within that first 31 to 60 days where maybe a patient called and they didn't get their appointment scheduled right, or you're going to have some issues that come up and you're going to say, oh, it was the virtual's fault, or really it was your training. But once you get to that 60 standpoint and you're going into the 90 days, you're going to see that optimization really, really grow. And this is why having two virtuals in that time point is now that small investment that you made is exploding. If at this period of time you say, hey, we should hire another person to come into the office, you're now reinvesting the entirety of that time. Where if you can have that virtual person or one of your virtual people moving into another role as you're hiring another person, then your expansion is just doubling and doubling and doubling, and you're advancing in your optimization from that point on. And I really encourage you to look at how you can scale in that arena. So, with hiring, as I already laid out, you want to define the role. You want to get a good job description that lays out what these people are going to do. And these job descriptions, you'll see if you grab my book, which I'll share with you a little bit more, some of the things that you can be looking for. But are they a scribe? Are they dealing with billing? Or are they dealing with phones? I do not recommend that you hire one person to do all of those things. That person will fail because you're trying to teach them the same as if you brought somebody into the office and you said, okay, I need you to answer the phone, run the front desk. I need you to be a technician. And I also want you to sit in the room, listen to me, type everything into the computer, and I want you to do it next week. That person would fail. They would actually get a little bit up to speed a little faster than somebody that you're doing virtually because they're there with you, they're listening to you, they're getting guidance from you, instruction with you constantly, whereas a virtual person doesn't have that. So lay out for it, get that person well versed in that one skill, and then consider moving them on if that is the right role for them. And then decide on your hiring path. There is also a path outside of Teams where you can hire directly. There's plenty of sources to do that. That's the least expensive way to do that. That is likely going to fail you 9 times out of 10. When the roles that you're laying out can be governed and overseen by an agency, which will help you with your compliance, your HIPAA, your safety for cybersecurity, and so forth. This is the reason why we work with an agency. I've direct hired before, and it did save money, but it brought about some major compliance issues. And we've now moved all of our team into work with team for that very reason. And hires that we will have in the future will be under the agency umbrella. And I really encourage you to do the same thing. And then what are the things that this person is going to be doing that is going to say that they were successful in their job? The KPIs or the number of phone calls that are answered or the appointments that are scheduled every single week and so forth. Lay out for those things and then have your scribe or have your phone desk, front desk type of person be tracking metrics so that you can say, hey, we're meeting these objectives. We just took this week 175 phone calls off of the front desk. And we now have a virtual person doing that. And that's a great way to know that you're successful. Begin with clear standard operating procedures that you can build and you can work with team to develop what those are going to be as well. And then building that patient-centered practice is really why we're going this direction. When our operations can excel, then patients are going to win. Your team is going to win. You're going to improve the access. It's going to allow more patients to come into the office. You're going to see that your satisfaction scores, your staff focus returns to care as opposed to making it through the day, And I think you'll see a substantial increase in your revenue because you're not burning out. And that's one of the things I really encourage you is we know how valuable our reputation is and our online reputation. And so utilizing online reviews, you're probably going to see that go up. And I would encourage you to have that face-to-face staff member who now has a lot of time to talk with patients about their weekend, about your sports team or whatever is going on, to ask for reviews of, hey, if you had a great experience in our office, would you mind scanning this and leaving a review for us? We're always looking for ways that we can do better, and also wanting to know what you enjoyed about our practice. You're going to bring about better staff retention, strengthen your culture, and then patients are going to stay and refer more patients. So that's definitely going to raise your revenue. I really think that when we think about the cost savings that are happening with our virtual team, we may be able to replace an in-office person with a virtual person and save some money. But I think what the big thing that we're going to be able to do is we're going to really be investing over time. This savings that is happening because of this virtual team is going to be an investment that is going to allow you to grow in your practice, not have to really be rehiring more and more people all of the time because your current staff is going to be able to stay longer. We've got some of the best staff that we've ever had, and we want to do everything we can to keep them because we know that when they leave, it brings about an added cost to us. And we have to develop those relationships over again. So start with one core role that you're going to be bringing in. I don't, if you want to, pull the, pull the Band-Aid off and really go at it, you can do that. But my recommendation is start with one role. For most people, that's either scribing or that is answering the phone. Get get two people in that can do that for you. Even if you're scribing, get two people to do scribing, and you're going to quickly start realizing that there's things that that scribe can do. Maybe they're ordering contact lens trials. Maybe they're ordering contact lens product. Maybe they're calling patients for recalls in between patients that they're seeing. And you're training both of those people to do that. Or if it's the phone answering, and then move into the billing. And that person who was answering the phone now is dabbling in some billing and working with your in-office billing of how do we do this better. But having two and then addressing into three. But as you bring anybody new into the training, so you're going to be training somebody on scribing, always be training two people at once. That way that you only have to retrain somebody. If you ever have to retrain somebody because somebody has left, you already have somebody virtually who can help oversee that training program. And that is how you're going to make that huge investment. Map the tasks that those people are doing, add specialized support, things that maybe you hadn't thought of. Maybe somebody that is doing recalls of your VIP patients, the patients that you're having a trunk show and you want to give first access to certain people in your optical. Expand without the limits that you have, and then you're really protecting your margins as your revenue grows. And this is where you can expand. You're still paying the same amount for your staff. You're able to give more bonuses and more revenue to both your virtual team as well as to your in-office team, but your revenue is going to continue to grow, and you're going to see that there is somewhat of a protected margin around one of your most expensive costs as you move in this direction. So with that, I'm happy to open up to any questions. Do want to mention that team has been partnering with me in the development of the Invisible Team book. If you are a customer of them, I'm sure that they would be happy to help you get the book. It'll also be on Amazon, but we'd love to find a way to get you a copy of the book in some way. But you can already have virtual team members and be growing through some of the knowledge that we have on there. If there's avenues or ways that I can help support you as you're starting your virtual team journey, let me know. My email is right here. I'm happy to answer any questions. My email is dave@optometricinsights.com. And for any of you that are on or that are listening, if there's any questions that I can answer, you can shoot me those questions over in the chat. Um, in the last 2 or 3 minutes that we have, unless there are any questions, I want to bring up the 2 or 3 things that are the biggest obstacles for people, and the 2 or 3 things that have really been most supportive to me. Number one is saying go. And this is, what am I going to have these people do? And do I have the money to make it work to hire somebody like this? And, this is basically like a piece of machinery that you are buying into the practice and you're wondering if it's going to make you money. The reality is that as you can bring about better quality service in your practice, and you can find more time in your day as the practice administrator or owner, or the practitioner can find more time, you're going to have space for more patients. And because you're improving the quality of the care that you're giving, you're going to you're going to have more patients that are being referred into your clinic from other people. So it's an incredible investment into making you more efficient and to making you have better care for your practice. So just saying go is the biggest obstacle that many people have, and I would highly recommend that you give it a shot. And the other big thing is hire two. I know that the cost of that may be a little bit challenging to you, but it is well worth the investment when you look back 3 and 6 months after you started. Worst case scenario, one of those people leaves. And the thing that I see most often happen when somebody only has one virtual is it becomes the one virtual against the office. Whereas if you start creating a culture around having the invisible team, the hybrid team, these individuals are there to support you. And if you have more than one of them, you'll definitely observe that support and see that support and find more things for them to do. And really lean in to the group at team who can help support you. You do have somebody that is specifically dedicated to focusing on you and your office, and those individuals are there to make sure that you're successful with the team members that you hire. So those are the recommendations that I have. Like I said, if there's anything that I can do to answer any questions, make sure to reach out. And you can be looking for this book on Amazon in right around Thanksgiving and the week after. And if you're working with team, make sure to ask them for a copy. I'm sure they'd be happy to send one your way. With that, not any questions coming through. I'll pass it back to you for the rest of your afternoon or evening, and thank you for joining me for this webinar.